I've been thinking a lot about movement lately and the balance of the mind, body, spirit relationship. And I think it's something that surrounds me particularly for a few different reasons. One is that I move so much for work. I've always been on my feet doing jobs. It makes me happy to move my body for work, so that's always been kind of scratched there. But when it comes to physical exertion and exercise and getting back into exercise, it's one of those things that's always on my list of inner anxieties or procrastination. And I think this falls into the same category for a lot of people. Obviously, the Western world is not the healthiest and is not at the healthiest point in its existence. You have a lot of people waking up to the spiritual and psychological traps of their own life, but they may still be stuck in a vicious sort of consuming lifestyle that obviously is sort of counteractive to a lifestyle that allows you to move more. There's something else that was interesting me as I was talking to my wife last night along these lines, and I think the idea first came to me a couple of years ago. I had a friend who enlightened me to a simple qigong practice to help exert stored energy kind of in the abdominal, solar plexus, kind of like the spleen area. I can't remember the specifics of it, but a lot of trauma gets stored in our stomachs, and he showed me this exercise that I could do along with my wife and I did together for a while, where you sort of, focus the energy down to the center of the earth and rake the energy out and actually do like a big heave exertion motion to help alleviate some of that loose energy from we don't recognize how much is stored in that nervous system over time. And especially when we don't move, we get used to not moving. Our body is conditioned to this lethargic state. We don't think about the stuff that's just laying dormant there. I was describing to my wife yesterday, she was talking about how she has anxieties sort of pop up everywhere. We've both been on a tip of self-work and healing over the past half a decade, probably longer. And, it's funny how her example was she used to blanket her anxieties with alcohol and be a badass and just drown it out. But once you don't have that booze blanket, you can, she's noticed a lot more anxieties appear in every situation of her life, whether it be, driving a car or going to work or getting in the office work. And there's something that she said to me that piqued my interest, and it was that when anxiety comes over her, it's not really a mental thing. It's not equated to this psychological worthiness thing. It's not a strictly mental process. It takes over her body. And something I've yet to determine if this works or not, but when you have, in my opinion, when you have fears and anxieties, they're often trying to highlight the areas of your life that you need work on. And I think that's why they're your fears and anxieties, or things you want to procrastinate, like me with my exercise. But it's a time where you feel the most seized up and can't take action. It's a time to maybe not always take action, but take attention towards yourself and see what's going on in those moments. And I said to her, the feeling, what is the feeling? What is the bodily feeling of anxiety? And she did something like this, and I said, what if you replace that with a power gesture I think it's like a Tony Robbins thing. I don't know if that's the exact terminology that he uses, but replace that with some kind of power gesture, you know, something that represents strength and confidence and capability when those anxieties start to creep in, no matter where it is, you know. I always recommend breath work. There are various types of breath work that can help you through your anxieties, but you know, sometimes when you get in the car and you're having traffic anxiety, you don't have time to sit down and do 10 minutes of Wim Hof. So maybe you're looking for a power gesture in your life to implement when you're feeling fears and anxieties. You know, I work behind the bar and I don't know, I kind of like have a bunch of wacky movements sometimes because, you know, I don't know, sometimes there's nervous energy and it's easily diffused by just, you know, humility. When I was a teenager, I also, you know, I discovered raves kind of in my early high school years, and I was a big like raver, you know, light show LED kid for a while, and there's something very freeing about that because I really couldn't dance, but at a rave I could dance like my ass off, you know, shamelessly too. You know, I think there's some humility element about moving freely that so many of us don't acknowledge can really help us therapeutically and ultimately change our behavior and our sort of physiological state. So just a little food for thought on that. I don't know, where are you feeling that you can implement physical movement to better your life, you know? I hop on this elliptical every morning because I don't like to go out and jog. I'm like very specific with how I work my body out right now. And it works. You know, I'm not saying go dive into like the hardest workout routine ever. Obviously things like, you know, that are more fun fun is really the key. If you can do something fun, you know, do it. If something feels relaxing to you as well, you know, do that. But lean into those things that are causing you anxiety. Lean into those things that are projections of future fear or maybe reminiscent of past fear, because they're not going to go away. So what can you learn from them as you reflect on who you are and who you're becoming?